His vision and tolerance were constantly expanding at the same time. Sioran looked at the samurai girl in her current state with admiration. This was exactly what Sioran wanted to see. However, he is not a person who is trapped in desires, he will only obey his desires. But it is obviously unrealistic to say that he has invested the same emotions in them as he has in Hestia and the others. Ordinary people's emotions are limited and cannot be divided equally among everyone. There must be someone who is most important. Chapter 134. It should be interesting. Not to mention Sioran, who was enjoying inexplicable pleasure. The situation on the battlefield had changed in the blink of an eye. Yamato's gravity magic trapped the monster stone. Fulvice also took the time to quickly recover her magic and physical strength. Crack! Crack! Under the amazing brute force of the dragon monster, the purple magic circle gradually cracked, and the cage made of magic was about to be violently torn apart. Huh! It takes a terrible amount of magic and spirit to trap 4.7. In just a few minutes, Yamato was about to reach her limit. Even though they were still within the range of Amid's recovery magic, they still couldn't keep up with the speed of consumption. It was not so easy to trap a top dragon species among monsters across several levels. Finally, the warrior girl, whose magic power was almost dry, couldn't help but loosen her palm. The previously rosy face was stained with a touch of paleness, slightly sick. When Yamato was about to collapse on the ground, Sioran appeared beside her and hugged her. "XT." The exhausted Yamato whispered. Her vision became a little blurry. But the familiar warmth and affinity still allowed her to recognize who was next to her. After all, there was only one person of the opposite S*X in her past and future life who could make her not reject him like this. "You're working hard." Sioran caressed the girl's soft long hair lovingly, and helped her recover her strength. Although he had never planned to intervene in the girl's battle, he did not say that he would not assist. Looking at the girl who tried too hard in front of him, Sioran naturally felt pity and cheered for her slightly. He could fully feel the curvy curves of the girl in his arms. The samurai girl who always loved to wear kimonos on weekdays had a delicate body underneath. Perhaps not as fruitful as Cassandra and the god girl. But she also had a unique softness, which Sioran had personally verified many times. Yamato, who often trained, tended to be a sports girl in daily life. But Sioran didn't have these charming thoughts now. He just gently comforted the girl in his arms to make up for her excessive loss of spirit and physical energy. Xia, Lord Sioran. Soon, Yamato's condition was completely restored. When she saw the handsome face that was close to her, a seductive blush appeared on her slightly pale cheeks, and her eyes were filled with unconcealed joy and love. The warrior girl's previous fighting spirit was gone, leaving only the fragility and tenderness that belonged to the thousand boys. Even though it was not the first time she had contact with someone she admired. But every time she encountered a similar situation, Yamato could not hide the shyness and joy in her heart. Should we say that the girls of the Hestia family have an inexplicable tacit understanding in this regard? Only a guy who was black inside and out was insulated from purity and shyness. It was really a cute reaction as usual. Seeing Yamato's rare weak posture, Sioran couldn't help but smile. Then he turned his attention to the battlefield that was gradually coming to an end. Before, when the cage formed by Yamato's gravity magic was broken, Fulvice, who had recovered to her peak state, launched a close combat again without any fear. The cool-down time of Sanyano Haruim's level sublimation magic had also ended, and she gave her companions blessings again. On the battlefield, the almighty fairy warrior moved flexibly with his agility. Whether it was the occasional magic bombardment or the attack that tried to sneak attack with the tail, all of them were seen through by Fulvice, who easily dodged these attacks that were enough to seriously injure the first-level adventurer. The extremely angry dragon-shaped monster could only make a slightly funny roar. It simply couldn't understand why it was so powerful that it couldn't catch such a small ant. It couldn't even touch the opponent with its own proud strength. No matter what kind of attack it launched, it would be easily dodged by her. Wait a little longer, there's no need to wait for it to give up a bigger break. While wandering in front of the monster, Fearwazy was also silently accumulating her own decisive blow. Fearwazy, who had previously defeated a fallen fairy spirit clone, naturally knew their weaknesses. It does have extraordinary bonuses in strength, durability, and defense. But these are brought by sacrificing agility, and are extremely clumsy. Unlike Yamato and the pressure that Daphne and the others felt. Having reached 4.7, Fearwazy didn't take the monster's attack seriously at all. No matter how strong it would be meaningless if it couldn't hit. Moreover, the dragon-shaped monster in front of her had completely abandoned its previous attack method because of anger. It only knew how to randomly hit and wantonly destroyed everything it touched. If she hadn't known that the opponent's scales were harder than the black rhino just now, Ertsongji would have given it a fatal blow now. Evil-breaking Holy Grail, transformed into a shield. God Salvation Holy Grail. After the skilled parallel chanting ended, Fearwazy deployed a pure white barrier of defense in front of her. Roar, roar, roar. The huge black shadow and the white barrier collided instantly. The air wave caused by the fierce contact swept across, and a small storm rose in the field. The monster, who had no reason at the moment, just wanted to crush the thing that was hindering it in front of it. The brutality engraved in its bones had completely devoured the consciousness of the fallen fairy's clone. Therefore, it did not notice that the black-haired fairy had already disappeared behind the light wall. At this time, Chigusa, who was in the back, also understood the deep meaning of Fulvice's actions. She took out all her remaining arrows at the same time. Then she shot them all at the monster's head from the side, intending to distract its attention. The monster's next behavior was exactly what the girls expected. It was already furious because of the obstacle in front of it, and it became more irritable after being disturbed. The eardrum-piercing roar was filled with unimaginable cruelty and murderous intent. The atmosphere around the monster was forced to disperse for a moment by this terrifying roar, and a brief vacuum appeared. Just when the attention of the fallen fairy clone was completely distracted, Fulvice had quietly appeared above its head. Evil-breaking holy staff, sweep my enemies. God Dionysus staff. The elf girl finished weaving the magic spell at an exaggerated speed. A huge amount of magic power gathered crazily, but it no longer turned into a raging torrent like before. Instead, it condensed into a thin beam of light. It seems extremely fragile, but it contains a deadly breath and a terrifying destructive power. This is the ultimate concentration. The long-hidden killer move of Fearwazy is displayed here, which is the long-accumulated magic power. In the past, after seeing her attack magic, Sioran made a suggestion. Fearwazy, your attack magic is not a big deal when facing ordinary enemies. But it is not good enough in front of those monsters with enhanced endurance and defense. You can try to compress it into a point and penetrate it to the extreme, it should be quite interesting. If it were the other adventurers, they would definitely not dare to try this move easily. Deliberately condensing magic power can cause more serious consequences than accidental explosion of magic power. Sioran originally came up with this idea because he had gradually lifted the restrictions on the device for the girls. After the level sublimation and his special optimization, the physique of the girls of the Hestia family is not comparable to that of ordinary adventurers of the same level. Its magic veins and control are far beyond the reach of others, not to mention the extremely excellent talent of Fearwazy. From the first meeting, every word of the boy has been immersed in the heart of the elf girl. Privately, she often tries the suggestions made by her own leader. When Fearwazy built a pure white barrier, she looked back at Kinko. The note of the end of life had sounded, and the colorful magic stone on the female body's chest was accurately shattered by Feierwazi. That was the nutrients transformed from the huge experience points, the great feat achieved by crossing levels. Not to mention the perception of the soul, I entered their bodies many times, of course I understand the changes caused by this. Crack. Many times in the underground maze, the girls who experienced life and death together and crossed greatness. Although there was no verbal communication, only a simple eye contact. Although it did not break the defense, it was obviously useful. The beam of destruction released by the pure white staff in Feierwazi's hand went straight to the magic stone embedded in the female body on the forehead of the dragon monster. The magic power compressed to the extreme by the elf girl ruthlessly tore through all the air that tried to block it, and rushed straight to the target. Roar. Even though the dragon monster had fallen into the abyss of frenzy at this time. But the instinct of the creature reminded it, a fatal threat was coming. The monster first felt an extremely cold chill. Just as it wanted to move, a purple color suddenly reflected in its blood-red pupils, causing it to lose consciousness for a short time. Dangerous and beautiful, like a rose with thorns, it sent it to the end. Then, the huge body of the fallen fairy clone suddenly paused. The murderous intent and tyranny in the scarlet pupils also stopped instantly, and a trace of confusion flashed faintly. It still didn't know what happened, but through the previous battle, Feierwazi had a vague judgment of the defense of the dragon monster. Directly crush all the monster army and black robe wizards who were struggling under his breath. Sioran did not hesitate to praise. Although it is not possible to condense the magic power into a point as he said. Unexpectedly, the mice hiding behind gave them such a gift. But they understood each other's plan and then cooperated tacitly. The previous range-oriented attack magic can cause a certain impact on its body. Not bad, not in vain. He could now clearly sense the changes in their bodies. Moreover, Feierwazi's goal is not the monster's tough skin. Now it seems that it is just right, just meeting the conditions for their upgrade. In the slightly dim battlefield, a touch of heart-shaking purple flashed by. Sioran, De Wang Hao, admired the perfect cooperation between his girls from the bottom of his heart. This exploration was originally based on their own interests. The light beam after her deliberate accumulation of power is definitely enough to penetrate its defense. Then, it's time to go home. Great job, this is the biggest gain of our exploration this time. Estimating the total amount of magic used before, Feierwazi refined all the remaining magic power at present. But now the light beam compressed as much as possible is enough. Compared to the so-called investigation, Sioran valued the girl's breakthrough more. The hideous monster turned into grey smoke in the blink of an eye, as if it had never existed. I was worried that the two fallen fairy clones would not be enough for their growth. It was nothing to him, but the girls really grew up through this great feat. Thinking of this, Yuan Ran's heart moved. Because of the same boy, they were closely connected and inseparable. It has become very tacit. Chapter 135, so far. Inside the unknown floor of Gnosis. The feast that was previously formed by the elite monsters from each floor of the underground maze has completely disappeared. The mania and tyranny in the air have also turned into nothingness. Only the many magic stones scattered on the ground indicate that there was a terrifying monster frenzy here before. The circular arena that serves as the ring is no longer as intact as before. There are scarlet liquids and limbs everywhere, and ordinary people can't face this bloody scene at all. Even the walls mixed with super hard metals are deformed and twisted into irregular states under various exaggerated squeezes. As for the wizards who are responsible for the curse at the entrance of the passage, their figures have long disappeared from the field. Even the mountain bronze door made of the hardest metal is shaky under the breath storm released by Sioran. Not to mention them who are made of ordinary flesh and blood. From entering here to the end of the battle, he only took less than an hour. However, in such a short time, The enemy's trump card that had been prepared for a long time just dissipated like a grain of sand. Ming-sama, even if it's warm in Lord Sioran's arms, you should get up now. It's wrong to sneak away. There was obvious envy in Lily Luca's tone. The little human girl's attention was previously attracted by the monsters in the field, and she didn't come back to her senses until now. Seeing the samurai girl being gently held by her own leader, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. I'm not. Yamato-sama, who was immersed in the familiar atmosphere, was awakened by Lily Luca's words. I wanted to explain but couldn't speak because I was too nervous. A charming blush rippled on her serious and resolute face in the past, and her slender eyebrows were close to each other at this moment because of the girl's shyness. The violet eyes flowed with a thrilling light. Although her physical strength and spirit had been restored, Yamato-sama couldn't control herself at all. Obviously, she should leave the familiar warmth immediately, but her body instinctively lingers here. She was reluctant to move for a long time, and she didn't look like a heroic warrior. The famous Jueying of Orario was in front of her. Compared with the resolute and courageous adventurer, she was more like an ordinary girl who fell in love, showing her unique charm. Hey, I don't mind. Ming's body is more comfortable than the highest grade pillow. Woo dash. The slightly flirtatious words had a strong impact on the heart of the samurai girl. The intoxicating blush began to gradually spread to the rest of Yamato Ming's whiteness, and the charm was intertwined around. The skin that already showed the vitality of the girl looked even more tender and attractive at this moment. Like a ripe red apple, people can't help but want to taste it carefully. However, despite this, Sioran still put Yamato Ming in his arms down. After all, the eyes of the other girls were all focused on them. He personally didn't care about it at all, but was happy to see his girls fall into an atmosphere similar to Shura Field. But Yamato no Mikoto obviously couldn't adapt to this kind of situation. The warrior girl who looked strong on the outside was unexpectedly weak on the inside. Alas. I really hope you can sometimes restrain your bad taste a little bit. Lord Sioran. I don't know when. Filawayzee quietly came to Sioran and suggested to her leader with helplessness. The elf girl discovered this a long time ago. The boy she admired liked to tease them about some embarrassing things. She was very happy to see them shaken by it, including her own main formation. Although Filawayzee didn't dislike it, knowing that this was a way for Sioran to express his emotions. But she still cared about the eyes of others, which was the nature of the girl. Haha, I don't understand what you are talking about, Filawayzee. You are really. So what should we do next, Lord Jiren? Facing Sioran's habitual stupidity, Filawayzee was a little helpless, and then began to ask the team about the subsequent plans. Although she didn't know what traps the enemy who built this artificial maze had set up. But from the previous attack, the opponent obviously used one of his hidden trump cards. Whether it is an astonishing number of monster armies or 2 fallen fairy clones that have reached LV.7, they are definitely not means that can be easily created. Not to mention that there are wizards and cursed props that can cast wide area abnormal magic on the side. The various arrangements made by the opponent are obviously to defeat their heroes. Presumably, the enemy should also be secretly observing their actions somewhere now. Seeing that the carefully prepared trump cards were overturned, they would definitely not dare to show up easily in the future. Unless they can directly find the opponent's base camp, it will only be a waste of time to explore further. Therefore, Filawayzee wanted to know the arrangements of her own leader. Let's stop here today. It should be evening now. Hestia is still waiting for us at home, so we won't play with those guys. After roughly estimating the current time, Sioran decided to return. This investigation trip was originally used to kill time. He is not interested in spending the night in this cold building. Compared to the chilly floor, he prefers to sleep on a comfortable and soft big bed, with a warm and delicate body as a companion. As for the mice hiding deep in the artificial maze, since they have brought a pretty good entertainment program to the girls today, they will be let go for the time being. Anyway, it is impossible to escape. This artificial maze is obviously their nest. The people who built this place will never abandon the countless efforts in the past. Therefore, there is no need to care too much. It is just a turtle shell that can be broken at any time. After completing the analysis of the underground maze, they will be completely destroyed. Sioran felt sorry for them in his heart. Draw a pause for the future. Although I don't mind playing cat and mouse with them occasionally. But playing the same game too much will eventually make you tired, and this is the last time. Sioran has a hunch that the time for him to achieve a world miracle is not far away. By then, the whole world will no longer have any secrets in front of him. What will these mice who only dare to hide in the sewers be at that time? What's more, Hestia at home is waiting for them to go back. Sioran doesn't want to waste too much time on these people or gods who can't even enjoy the sun. This exploration can be regarded as a perfect ending. In addition to knowing that there is such a large-scale artificial maze hidden under the maze city. The two fallen fairy clones that suddenly attacked just happened to serve as the breeding ground for the evolution of his own girls. Materials. Originally thought that the sublimation would need to be completed by an expedition, but I didn't expect that it could be completed in this exploration to kill time. It was a pleasant surprise. Therefore, Sioran prepared to leave immediately. After all, there was no reason to stay here now. Let Hestia upgrade them after returning at night. Thinking of this, Sioran no longer wasted time. Directly shook the divine consciousness to search for the breath in the nearby layers of the maze. I found the correct route. With his current mental power, a mere man-made thing naturally could not block his vision. The complex terrain structure of the maze was clearly drawn in his mind. When he just stepped into this man-made maze, he noticed that the scale of this place seemed to be larger than he imagined. When he used divine consciousness to explore the 10th floor, Sioran found this man-made building began to border the underground maze. Considering that continuing might attract the attention of the will of the underground maze, Sioran did not continue to use his divine consciousness. The people who built this place are most likely hiding in a deeper place, so he has no interest in finding trouble with them for the time being. Now, he is only searching the first few floors. While exploring the correct route of the floor, he is looking for traces of AISI and others. There are no gods. In an instant, Sioran's divine consciousness has completed the terrain exploration of the first 10 floors of the artificial maze. He did not sense the breath of gods in these floors, which was a little regretful. Then Atos, I'll go first, judging from the fact that the black-robed wizards were able to use magic before. There must be one or more gods behind them. Without the grace given by the evil god, they are just ordinary people with stronger bodies. Therefore, Sioran originally thought that if the evil god behind the group of rats existed here, then just wipe them all out and solve it from the source. After all the forces hiding in the shadows, except for the weirdos belonging to her. The rest are just tools that follow the chaotic will of the evil god, and are not a threat at all. The gods who manipulate everything behind the scenes and try to subvert the existing pattern of the maze city are the real enemies. But since we didn't meet them this time, forget it, and it will be the same again in the future. For the evil god who claims to be a city destroyer, this place must be an important stronghold that he has carefully arranged, and the probability of abandoning it is extremely low. So Sioran didn't worry about it. What's the point of worrying about the existence that can be solved at any time? Let's go, it seems that something interesting has happened. After determining the next path, Sioran led the girls of the family away. During the search just now, he found that Finn's breath became extremely weak. The life fire of the leader of the little people is now like a candle in the wind. Swaying with the wind, always on the verge of extinguishing. P.S. There will be another chapter later. Sorry friends, I haven't slept enough recently and my condition is a bit bad. Chapter 136, The Burning Battlefield. They and I underestimated the strength of Hestia's family. Especially Hero. As long as this monster is here, how can the vision of the dark faction be achieved? In the depths of Gnosis. In the familiar dim hall, Baka's eyes that were not blocked by his long hair were full of horror. His eyes were fixed on the black-haired boy in the picture. Hiding under the messy long hair, there was already a pile of cold sweat on his forehead that he himself had not noticed. The overly pale skin showed a trace of blue lines because the owner could not suppress the throbbing in his heart. The body that was already slightly sick was shaking uncontrollably, as if it would fall down in the next moment. The light screen in front of Baka clearly showed the scene of Sioran easily crushing the monster feast and the black robe wizard. It was completely unclear what he did. Hero just stood there from beginning to end, without any other movements. But that's it? However, the monsters in the underground maze, which were considered elite, were forced to wail and struggle. The cursed items they had set up for a long time and the magic of the magician were useless. Originally, they thought that even if the negative magic could not reduce the ability of the hero and the guardian fairy, it could still interfere with them a little. Coupled with the influence of the other members of the Hestia family, the other party would definitely be cautious and unable to exert their full strength. But imagination is beautiful, and reality is always very different from it. The hero and his fairy were completely unaffected by the abnormal magic. There are also magicians in the Hestia family who can remove the curse. What shocked Baka even more was that the rest of the monsters were mostly at levels 4.3 and 4.4. The two 4.7s that they had carefully cultivated still had no power to resist in front of them. The appearance of the fallen fairy clone lying on the ground and howling continuously made Baka feel cold in his heart. Apart from Revis, who has reached 4.8, the filthy fairy is their strongest trump card. However, it is such an existence. In front of the hero, it is like a baby animal, pitiful and fragile. The craftsman who has devoted his life to completing Gnosis. Today, he felt the emotion that he had long discarded in the past more than once, fear. Baka has come into contact with various types of adventurers and gods in the past. The extremely crazy remnants of the dark faction, the cold and ruthless shadow assassin. The evil god who is completely focused on his own enjoyment, the ugly and jealous goddess. But these people did not make him have extra emotions, and they just looked at each other's desires indifferently. They are just ordinary collaborators with their own demands, so they gathered together. The so-called unity and friendship are just boring things to them, and they do not exist. The contact between Baka and them is just for the sad wish of his own family. That is the obsession and curse that has been passed down for thousands of years since the famous craftsman Daedalus. Therefore, he had no emotions other than completing the construction of this artificial maze. Baka put his body and mind into this long-cherished wish that had lasted for thousands of years, and had no extra thoughts to think about other things. But now, the fear rooted in the instinct of dry creatures was awakened. Baka couldn't help but recall the scene when the hero first stepped into this artificial maze. Pleasure me to your heart's content, mice. Huh. A heavy breath emerged from Baka's mouth, and the craftsman tried to suppress the negative emotions that were spreading in his heart. Baka knew that their ambush had failed. The most important thing to do now is to retain the remaining combat power, even though he himself didn't know if it would be useful. 10. Then, Baka turned his eyes to another light curtain, where Sword Princess, Angry Snake and others were fighting with Revis. Tough guy. Arya, don't waste my time. Otherwise I will break your limbs and take you back later. Anyway, as long as you are alive, it's fine. After a fierce clash, Revis retreated to the back, staring coldly at the members of the Loki clan opposite. Around, the abandoned hall that originally served as a laboratory had already become unrecognizable. The walls, the ground, and the ceiling were engraved with frightening marks everywhere. Oh! Sword marks, knife marks, and holes from the strong bombardment of battle axes were all over the space. The smoke and dust that already existed here were completely blown away by the breath of the first-level adventurers' continuous collision. The dim hall was filled with the cold light and murderous aura of the golden sword. In the previous battle, Rivas focused her main target on Ace and kept attacking her, trying to make the Sword Princess temporarily lose her combat effectiveness first, so that she could be taken away from here later. Although the other party repeatedly denied that she was Arya, she could not be wrong about the protection of the wind in front of her. It was exactly the bloodline that she needed. Therefore, Rivas concentrated most of her offensive on the output of Sword Princess. But the tacit understanding of the group of people in front of her was somewhat beyond her expectations. Even though she had a slight advantage in strength and physical strength. But she couldn't take them all down in a short time, or it was impossible to do so. The first-level adventurers of the Loki family were always able to support each other in time. They formed a defense like an iron wall, and Rivas also felt extremely troubled. So far, the battlefield in the hall fell into a stalemate, and neither side could do anything to the other. Chapter 137. Just say a few more words. I'm not Arya. Ace had corrected Rivas's address to her more than once. But the other party seemed to not care, and just determined this through her wind magic. Although the girl was a little natural, she was not stupid. She knew that the red-haired weirdo in front of her must have some connection with the fallen fairy. They were all craving for their own wind, or the blood flowing in their bodies. If it were the previous Isai, she would definitely be shaken by Rivas's words, affecting her own combat effectiveness. For her in the past, in addition to revenge on the black dragon with eyes, only the throbbing in her blood could make her fluctuate, which was the last treasure left to her by her mother. Having experienced the taste of being deprived of everything, Isai would naturally care about this remaining existence. However, after experiencing Sioran's teachings and finding the bond with her clan partners, her state of mind has obviously changed, and it is no longer as deep and dim as before. The void of nothingness is being nourished and gradually becoming complete, and the frozen emotions are beginning to melt quietly. The current Sword Princess has only a sword heart that breaks through all obstacles ahead, and an unstoppable edge. Since the previous 59th floor expedition, Isai has made up her mind. Not only must she defeat the black dragon that once took everything from her, she must also give the fallen fairy body hidden in the deeper layers a rest. Therefore, the current words of Rivas can't affect her heart at all. Stop making a fuss. Don't think you can talk big there just because you have some strength. I won't hand Isai over to you. The enemy's cold tone aroused the Amazon sisters' belligerence. In front of the two heroes, he said he would break his companion's limbs. This made the twins who valued the bond unbearable. If such a thing happened, it would be a provocation and an 887 insult to them. They absolutely cannot tolerate the emergence of such a situation. At present, Dione and Diona stared at Rivas, who was standing opposite them, with fierce eyes. Their eyes were filled with a passionate desire to fight and kill, and the twins' emotions were becoming excited because of the enemy's words. Their graceful curves were slightly tense, and their elegant swan-like necks were gently lowered, like a tigress ready to charge for a blow. There was a trace of steam rising from their wheat-colored skin, and the blood of Israel was roaring in their bodies. They vowed to tear apart the beast that dared to show its fangs in front of them. Although the twins thought that they were completely different from the past. But when the people they cared about were threatened, they would never mind turning into warriors recognized by the strongest beasts in Daokyo. The little girls are right. You can't do it without stepping over my body. Grace raised the big battle axe in his hand, and his rough face was full of madness. The dwarf warrior who had always protected the new members of Loki's family. He would not let this happen even if he gambled his dignity and life. Wake up. Feeling her companion's excitement, AIC's heart became more determined, and she called out her own wind again through her thin lips. She was strengthening the output of Wind Spirit Sprint to improve her basic ability as much as possible. This approach should not be able to withstand her original physique. After all, this type of magic depends largely on the strength of the body. If the body is not strong enough, and the magic output is increased blindly, the body will eventually break like porcelain that cannot withstand the pressure. But after Sioran sublimated AIC's vessel, in addition to the upgrade brought by the achievement of great deeds, she can already try to chant multiple times. And it will not cause too much impact on herself, but she will feel a little weak afterwards. This is already a very good result. If it was the former AISI who pushed herself to the limit like this, that would certainly burn her life fire, but fortunately, it is not necessary now. Sensing the determination of her companions, Isai also began to show her full strength. The fighting spirit of all members of the Loki family reached its peak at this moment, and the breathtaking momentum seemed to tear the entire hall apart. Between the fields, except for Isai and the other first-level adventurers, the rest of the Loki family are in the fork near this hall. The current battlefield is only for top-level adventurers. The rest of the people who come in can hardly resist the storm of breath intertwined by both sides, let alone fight. It's really troublesome. Seeing the rising heat in front of her, the always indifferent Revis also frowned slightly, and she realized how difficult the matter was. I didn't expect that a casual word from me could actually inspire the other party's will to such a degree. She couldn't gain an advantage before, and now it is obviously more difficult, and there is even a high probability of defeat. However, Revis did not have any fear of this. She didn't have any extra emotions. It has always been like a wild beast in the jungle, following its instinctive cruelty and coldness. Revisited the dark sword in her hand and raised it high, and the rich and deep magic power gathered rapidly in it. The already hazy space became even darker under the influence of this ominous magic power. The terrifying momentum continued to collide and clash in the hall. All the experimental equipment left here was shattered, and the spider webs on the ground began to expand continuously, with a tendency to wrap the entire Tianzai. On the battlefield, one side was filled with high and boiling fighting spirit, and the other side was precipitated with cold and deep killing intent. The fierce momentum of both sides seemed to form an invisible blade, which was constantly cutting everything around. The super hard metal could not withstand this terrifying confrontation and let out a series of wails. The originally smooth and flat surface was twisted into a dilapidated appearance by an invisible pressure. Just when both sides were about to launch a fatal attack, a familiar heavy voice suddenly sounded in the field. A hidden mountain bronze door quietly appeared at the front of the hall, and it seemed to be turned over. Seeing this, as if it was some kind of reminder, Revis restrained her murderous aura. Then she glanced at AISI opposite and said, "It seems that the time has come. See you next time. Arya." Then, without giving the people of Loki's family time to react, she went straight into the gate. The mountain bronze door in front of her seemed to be opened specially for Revis. It was completely closed the moment she entered. "Okay, we don't have extra time to waste here." Grace, who came to his senses first, reminded the others. "Now there are many members in the team who are suffering from the erosion of severe poison. They can't stay here for too long, otherwise those members will die. The fierce poison of poison demon maggot is a neurotoxin that even abnormal resistance cannot resist. It is necessary to return to the surface to find a healer to detoxify." Just as AIC's team continued to look for the exit of the artificial maze, Revis returned to the depths of Gnosis through the hidden door. "Baka, why did you suddenly call me back?" The cold voice of the red-haired weirdo made the dark halo in the hall gradually sway. The temperature of the air also dropped a few degrees at this moment. "The hero has defeated your clones. There is no time." Baka did not care about Revis's cold tone and answered her doubts lightly. So fast. Hearing this, Revis's expression seemed to be frozen for a moment, abruptly solidified. She originally thought that the fallen fairy clone that she carefully nurtured could not defeat the hero. It can also cause him a certain degree of trouble, making it impossible for him to escape in a short time. But I never thought that they were all solved in such a short time. That was what she and Inayo carefully fed for a long time before creating. Now 2 more were destroyed in this artificial maze. Even with her heart as cold as a weapon, she couldn't help but feel a little angry. If she didn't know that she was no match for the hero now, Revis would have gone directly to intercept. Your anger has no effect at all, and it can't pose any threat to him. Baka noticed Revis's current emotion and said frankly. He knew a little about the woman in front of him. Her essence was a monster in human skin. Similar to the enhanced species in the underground maze. She became stronger by swallowing magic stones, and now she has an exaggerated strength estimated to be 4.8, which can indeed be called tyrannical. But it also depends on who you compare it with. For the other first-level adventurers in the Maze City, Revis does have terrifying strength, enough to suppress all adventurers except Brave Man. She undoubtedly stands at the top of Orario. But if compared with Hero, who is completely out of the norm, it seems far from enough, and that is not a gap that can be made up by simply swallowing magic stones. Although Baka has no strength, he can also feel the oppression brought to him by the two. Revis gave him a deep cold feeling, while Hero brought him boundless fear. There is no comparison at all, and there is no existence that can rival it. According to the upgrade time interval left in the guild in the past, the speed of Hero becoming stronger seems to be more exaggerated than that of aliens like Revis. It has only been 5 years since the opponent came to Orario and became famous all over the world. Even Baka, who rarely leaves Knossos, is very clear about his terrifying prestige. It is hard to imagine how far he can reach in the end. Is it the right choice for them to go against him? Thinking of the sight of the black-haired boy looking at them through the light screen, Baka couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He even wondered if the hero already knew their current location. But this conjecture was too terrifying, and he didn't dare or want to delve deeper. Baka found that his heart was now completely shrouded by the shadow of the hero. The more he recalled the other party's previous actions, the more palpitations he felt. The deep eyes that were enough to suck the soul into them made him terrified. He was an existence that made it impossible for people to raise the idea of resistance. Baka, who had roughly seen some of the strength of the hero, knew this very well. However, the obsession for thousands of years had been deeply rooted in the soul and blood. Baka couldn't just give up, he could only have some luck. Letting Revis come back was also to keep the strongest combat force on their side. The strength of the red-haired female monster could barely bring Baka a sense of security. In addition to Revis, he also reminded the other people who participated in the hunt. In order to fulfill his family's long-cherished wish, he was willing to risk everything. Kr. Looking at the pale Baka in front of her, Revis subconsciously frowned, and the rest of the words were left in her throat. As a beast, she could naturally clearly sense some of the hidden emotions of her prey. The human in front of her had no interest in anything except the artificial maze since the first cooperation. At this moment, she actually felt fear from him. What did this guy see? On the other side. After sensing Finn's rapidly weakening breath, Sioran took his girl to the floor where they were. He had a good impression of the leader of the dwarf tribe, so he would not let him die in the artificial maze. It didn't take long for Sioran to find Rahul and his team who were resting in an open space. Mr. Sioran. The careful Catman Ankai was the first to notice his presence. The girl's delicate face was no longer as calm as before, and her eyes had lost a lot of agility. She was obviously depressed because the leader of the clan had suffered a heavy blow. Even Ankai, who was always calm in the team, was like this, and the other members were in a worse state. Under the malicious weaving of Gnosis, the team fell into deep despair. However, when they saw Sioran, the originally low atmosphere suddenly rose. It was as if the flowers on the verge of withering were nourished by the sweet spring and regained vitality. Especially a certain brown-haired elf, whose azure eyes reflected obvious joy. The slightly tense face softened quickly after seeing the familiar figure. This is the fatal sense of security that heroes have long possessed. No matter what desperate situation they are in. As long as they see him, they will be yearning and ignite the flame of hope again. Hey, you are really in a mess, Finn. He was not worried about losing his life. He had been prepared since the day he became an adventurer. You are so rare. Finn really thought he would die. The wound on Finn's chest was recovering rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. The pale face was gradually getting better, and the breathing became even. When Amid's treatment was over, the leader of the dwarf tribe could stand normally. He was more afraid that no one would revitalize the future of the race and no one would carry the courage of the race. But none of them worked. Finn, who had recovered a little, thanked Sioran and Amid earnestly. Tat. Then he signaled to Amid and asked the girl to start treating the leader of the dwarf tribe. After slightly signaling to Lefia and the others. Looking at Finn, who seemed to want to say something, Changran interrupted him directly. As the song was woven, soft light sprinkled on the injured adventurer. What did you encounter, Finn? In his past adventure career, this was also an extremely dangerous experience. Well, stop talking, I'm afraid you'll say a few more words. Ha, this time it's really embarrassing. You saved my life. I thought it would end here today. Thank you very much, Sioran and Miss Amid. It was all because of the ominous smell rising from the edge of the wound, which was always hindering its healing. There were many liquids with soft smells sprinkled around the wound, which were obviously healing potions. There was no trace of the brave man respected by the adventurers and residents of the Maze City in the past. With the current state of the hero, it is possible that he will die in the next second. Then he sighed with a wry smile about his previous experience. Pictured is Angel. With her magic, she can easily remove this level of injuries and curses. Even if he encountered the fallen fairy spirit clone, Finn should not be seriously injured. Sioran approached the team and looked at the leader of the dwarf tribe, who was now lying on the ground. There was a deep wound on his chest that could see the bone, and bright red liquid kept flowing out of it. Sioran was slightly curious. He first explored the whole candy. Before coming here, he had never thought that he would be seriously injured here. Ha! He just searched the nearby layers and did not find any strong breath. His clean and handsome face in the past was now covered with blood and sweat. Chapter 138, The Possibility of Fusion. Sioran was naturally aware of Finn's strength. He was definitely one of the strongest adventurers besides him. Brave had been staying at 4.6 for a long time. The experience points accumulated at this level were beyond imagination, and he was about to reach the threshold of 4.7. In addition, with the experience and skills accumulated by Finn in countless battles, few adventurers in the Maze City dared to say that they could definitely beat him. Moreover, in the previous common long-distance battle, Sioran also saw Finn's unique berserk magic. With the blessing of this enhancement magic, heavy ones even have the strength to compete with V. However, Finn, who has such strength, is now severely injured. If Sioran had not been able to find them, Finn would most likely have fallen in this artificial maze. Therefore, he was slightly curious about what exactly he had encountered to make the leader of the little people so embarrassed. Ha, I encountered. Looking at Sioran's inquiring eyes, Finn couldn't help but smile bitterly. Then he told him the relevant information after entering the artificial maze. Red-haired weirdo, Revis. After listening to Finn's story about the attack their team had experienced, Sioran's expression was somewhat inexplicable. The strength of this new race of weirdos seems to be interesting, and their evolution speed is obviously too exaggerated for adventurers. If Sioran remembers correctly, Rivas should have only been at level leave 6 in Rivera Town, and even Isai at that time could fight with her. But now, according to Finn's guess, the 15th party has probably reached level leave 8. Only a few months have passed since Rivera Town. It is indeed incredible to be able to achieve a 2-level promotion in such a short period of time. You have to know that Oda, who has already reached level leave 7, has been honing his current level for several years. But the weirdo Rivas can ignore the gap in levels and reach level leave 8 very quickly. Even though it is far inferior to Sioran himself, it is still amazing. After all, 4.8 is definitely a nightmare level for adventurers in Aurario. The exaggerated evolution speed of the monsters seems to be more outrageous than the grace of adventurers. This aroused Sioran's interest. Is it that Rivas can reach this level just by swallowing magic stones? Or did she get the grace of God on the basis of her own strong talent? Thinking of the second guess, Sioran's smile became more playful, and his eyes flashed with unfathomable waves. If it is really the second reason, then it is not impossible for Rivas to have such an amazing evolution speed. Monsters are originally a species between humans and monsters. Then it seems that it is possible that it has both humans and monsters. It can strengthen itself by swallowing magic stones through cannibalism. It can also speed up the growth process by relying on the grace of God. Under the joint burst of the two possibilities, this kind of evolution seems to be quite decent. Sioran is not concerned about the slightly exaggerated evolution speed of the red-haired monster. Even if she evolved to 4.10, she would be killed by him easily. Sioran focused his attention on the nature of this evolution. If his conjecture is true, then the subsequent plan for the analysis of the underground maze can be slightly advanced. If Rivas was blessed by a certain god and then reached her current level by swallowing magic stones, then this means the grace of the gods and the magic stones of the underground maze can exist in the same species at the same time. According to Rand's previous judgment, the underground maze and the underworld and the heaven should belong to different worlds. Obviously, they should be mutually exclusive at the rule level. Now they are miraculously merged together to form the special case of weirdos. If so, does it prove that the two worlds have the possibility of merging? Is the invasion of the underworld by the underground maze for this? Thinking of this, Sioran's guess about the nature of the underground maze is more fulfilled. In addition to the amazing singing bird he met on the 19th floor before, an interesting idea was born in Sioran's mind, and he had already decided on the follow-up arrangements. This world is really interesting. No, it should be said that these two worlds. Sioran, what are your plans next? After a short rest, Finn, who had recovered a lot of his condition, looked at the black-haired boy beside him who was inexplicably lost in thought. Their investigation trip this time was a complete failure. The group of people hiding behind the scenes seemed to have a way to monitor them at all times. They could easily separate them and then defeat them one by one. The red gem on the mountain bronze door was obviously a prop similar to a control. Finn had seen a lot of this type of things during his journey. Therefore, before he could get the key to the door of this underground maze, it was an irrational decision to continue the investigation, and Finn had already planned to retreat. Although he had reunited with the hero now, but he had not found the means to hide the enemy in the depths. Suddenly. So according to his past experience, the best choice at present was to leave this place temporarily. Presumably, the situation of Ace's team should be not much different from his own. The enemy deliberately separated the members of their two clans, and it must be to defeat them separately. Finn would not allow such a situation to happen. Well, I have had enough fun today, and it is time to leave. Sioran answered Finn's question casually. His mind was not on this underground maze at all. He was constantly building his own conjecture in his mind. I have had enough fun. Sioran's casual answer made Finn, who was always calm, twitch his mouth slightly. Seeing the indifference on the boy's face, the leader of the little people couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. I almost died in this artificial maze this time. But it was just a game in his eyes. It was really admirable. The other members of the family beside Finn looked at Sioran with awe or admiration, and did not speak. Leffy Yacht also came to the boy quietly at some point, staring at him with bright eyes. The eyes of the 1,000 fairies were as clear as the sky, and a strange light flashed. The uneasiness that had arisen because of the heavy injury suffered by the leader had all dissipated when he saw him. In this artificial maze full of various crises, the confident and calm smile on the corner of the hero's mouth was really too dazzling and intoxicating. For pure girls like Ankai and Leffy Yacht of the Loki family, it was even more fatal. The cat girl who was previously shrouded in despair regained her former tranquility. A rare joy appeared on her jade-like cheeks, which was very different from her usual calmness. The tail behind her swung unconsciously, fully revealing her master's feelings at the moment. As a candidate for the cotter of Loki's family, Angel is naturally very familiar with Hero. The situation that was extremely bad before has been reversed in the blink of an eye after his arrival. The road ahead, which was originally thought to be dim, has become extremely bright because of his appearance. The cat girl has never felt that the air in this dark floor is so fresh as it is now, and the pressure on her shoulders instantly disappears. Angel, who always keeps calm in the past. After feeling the sense of security brought by Hero, her heart can't help but start to ripple. If Loki sees this scene, he will definitely have a hangover again. Fortunately, she is not here, otherwise I will have a headache again. Finn noticed the eyes of the female members of the family at this moment, and shook his head helplessly. He is almost completely adapted to the scene in front of him. He noticed it when they occasionally met in the past expedition. The female members of his family are gradually attracted by the charm of Hero. Especially after the other party came to Loki's family a month later to train Isai. This trend became more and more exaggerated, and Loki beat his chest and sighed every time. He said something like, all the lovely girls in my family will be kidnapped by that stinky boy. The dwarf's family is more hateful than him. And so on. Thinking of his own unreliable main god and the female map staff who are gradually deviating. The leader of the dwarf tribe inexplicably felt that the future was slightly dim. However, he could understand the lethality of a few heroes to adventurers of the opposite s*x. Even Livalia, who always maintained elegance and indifference in the past. Finn also found that her concern for a certain boy was becoming more and more obvious recently. You know, even though he and Grace have known the royal elves for a long time, he has never seen him take the initiative to contact the opposite s*x, this is the first time. In the past, Finn would never have thought that there would be such a scene. But after meeting the black-haired boy in front of him, everything seemed to become very normal. After experiencing too many actions and achievements that broke the norm, Finn now even thought that everything that happened to him was in line with the norm, and gradually adapted to it. The hero was still as powerful as ever, in every sense. Let's go, yeah. Sioran reminded the leader of the dwarf tribe, and then took the lead to leave with the girls of the tribe. Now it was only a matter of time to reunite with his lovely apprentice. He had already found the traces of Aisi and the others, but he came here first because he found that Finn's aura was about to wither. P.S. I took a day off yesterday and forgot to tell my friends. There will be another chapter later. Chapter 139 Old Couple. Sioran met Aisi and the others in a complicated and intertwined fork. At this point, the team of this investigation trip was gathered again. After seeing several members with purple skin behind Aisi and the others, Sioran skillfully asked Amid to perform detoxification magic to treat them. Otherwise, according to the erosion speed of the toxin, these members who were hit might not last for an hour. At the same time, he was more convinced of his decision to kidnap Aisi and the others. Hey! Loki, you can repay the favor you owe me with the beautiful girls of your family. You're welcome, welcome again. Loki, get lost. In this way, Sioran suddenly found that Loki was actually quite good and unexpectedly useful. Originally, I thought that the drunkard goddess was useless, and she had a perfect appearance. But now it seems that at least he is very impressed with her vision. Male members. Forget it, I'm too lazy to say more. Female members are generally excellent girls with both good looks and qualifications. After all, the red-haired goddess is an undeniable beauty control. When selecting members of the clan, she took it as the third condition for selection. You have my approval. Loki. Loki, thank you. After watching the poisoned clan companions being treated, Aisi walked silently to Sioran and thanked him softly, with a gentle touch in her tone that she herself had not noticed. Are you still so distant with me, Aisi? Hearing this, Sioran skillfully stroked the blonde hair of the girl in front of him, and felt the softness and silkiness in his hands. It was just a favor, not a big deal. Besides, with the character of her own girl, she would not ignore the allies who had been on the expedition together in the past. It was just a simple healing magic, which did not take much energy. Feeling the familiar warmth coming from the top of her head, Aisi subconsciously lowered her head a little, without any resistance. Thanks to Sioran's past words to coax the girl, she had long been accustomed to such intimate actions with her master. Although her face was still expressionless, but her pink earlobes gradually became alluringly moist, as delicate and beautiful as a shy flower. Sword Princess quietly showed her unique charm in front of the boy. Then, when all the members of Loki's family had recovered, Sioran began to return to the surface with them. In the previous divine sense exploration, he already knew the correct way out. So it didn't take much time for everyone to reach the starting point. Sioran, Finn, you are not fat, right? As soon as they returned here, Sioran and his friends met Livalia, who was searching. The royal elves were still as gorgeous as before, with beauty and temperament that made goddesses jealous. But at this moment, it was a little different. There was an abnormal redness on the white and delicate face like milk. A trace of visible fatigue flashed in the eyes that were the same color as the forest. A few crystal clear water drops occasionally slid down the perfect outline of the royal elf. Compared with her usual elegance and calmness, the current Livalia was obviously a little more fragile and pitiful. So that's why, you repeatedly cast wide area magic to detect, you're really worrying too much, Livalia. Noticing the abnormality of the royal elf, Changran roughly guessed what she did. It was probably because she was worried that they would enter the artificial maze for a long time without making any movement. Livalia, who couldn't help but worry, used her magic to explore many times. Sioran noticed this during the previous expedition. Livalia's wide area annihilation magic can identify enemies and companions within a certain range. I guess she relied on this slightly clumsy method to find their traces. However, this also shows the anxiety and worry in the heart of the royal elf. Although she was very dissatisfied with Loki's repeated joking of her as Mom. But Livalia's subconscious concern and care for her companions, it shows that she seems to fit this role very well. Then, ignoring the surprised eyes of the members of the Loki clan around, Sioran placed his fingers on Livalia's smooth forehead, not paying attention to the crystal on it. As his thoughts surged, a gentle energy continued to be injected into Livalia's body. It was as quiet as the drizzle that moistened everything, but it penetrated into the heart. In just a blink of an eye, the royal elf's complexion returned to normal. The unhealthy redness on the cheeks gradually faded, and the fatigue accumulated by excessive use of magic quickly dissipated. If Livalia was previously decadent due to lack of nourishment, now she is elegant and blooming. For the boy's sudden approach, Livalaya didn't know what to say. She didn't dislike such a close distance. Although it was her first time to touch the opposite S**X, she did not reject it in her heart. Instead, she felt an inexplicable emotion growing. Or it could be said that the long-accumulated torrent in the past was surging at this moment. The body and spirit that had been slightly weak, instantly recovered to their peak state. It was even better then. If the body and spirit before were a dry soil, now it is a fertile land that has been nourished by a large amount of sweet springs, and it is full of infinite vitality. Livalaya didn't know how to describe her complicated mood now. It was both novel and comfortable from the bottom of her heart. In the past, she always acted as the protector of the family, protecting the growth of new members in the family, especially Aisi, who accompanied them like a big brother. As the first to join the Loki family as one of the elders of the clan, Livalaya subconsciously possessed this awareness. Therefore, she was often jokingly called Mother Livalaya by Loki. Although it was just a joke, but coupled with the awe and admiration of the other members, this made Livalaya always feel that she was the elder of all the clan members. So she has always looked at herself and treated her partners from the perspective of an elder. She did not hate this. On the contrary, Livalaya was very happy to see the new members thrive under her wings. For this reason, she always put herself in a position similar to a bystander. Only from the time she met the black-haired boy in front of her, Livalaya gradually felt that unique sense of equality. It was also at that time that she discovered, in addition to witnessing the magnificent vision of the world, she also had a deep desire for equality. Livalaya, who had fled because she could not stand the stubborn rules of the elf country, naturally did not want to suffer the same constraints in the outside world. What she hopes to see is a relationship of equality, rather than constraints based on blood or identity. However, things did not go as planned. Even though she escaped from that rotten place, her inherent cognition still tightly entangled Livalaya like a chain. The admiration of others and the respect for the royal bloodline became the shackles of the princess who yearned for freedom, until that accidental conflict. So when they first met in the tavern, Livalaya had such a deep impression of Sioran. It was not his appearance that was better than that of a male god, but his tolerance that treated everyone equally in his eyes. Later, since Sioran began to promote the growth of Aisi, a certain emotion in Livalaya's heart gradually sprouted. And as her daily interactions with Sioran gradually deepened, it was a feeling she had never had before. Now, in addition to the sense of equality she had hoped to get in the past, this was the first time that Livalaya played the role of being taken care of. She always played the role of the head of the family in Loki's family. This was the first time she experienced this feeling of being protected or pitied. It was not until the royal elf came to his senses that he discovered, the seed that sprouted in my heart yesterday has been developing towards lushness at some point. Through some kind of hot nourishment, it is growing at a very fast speed. Continue in this trend. It will eventually form a towering tree rooted in the heart, until it bears abundant fruits containing the pure white heart of the royal elves. Today I unexpectedly saw the clumsy side of Livalaya. Looking at Livalaya, who seemed to be lost in some thoughts, Sioran smiled at her gently. To be honest, he rarely saw the current appearance of the royal elves. On weekdays, Livalaya always maintained her elegance and indifference, and dealt with everything rationally and wisely. Even if she was in crisis, she would not be shaken at all. This is the perseverance engraved in her bones. Although Livalaya is not as serious as other elves, her nature is still a little stubborn. Even so, she now chose the least efficient method to detect their traces. I have to say, the occasional contrast of the royal elves touched Sioran's cuteness, so he would naturally express it. He was not interested in the eyes of others, he just did what he wanted to do. It was not his style to make a girl who was trying hard to find you look embarrassed. Compared with the unspeakable tacit understanding between Sioran and Livalaya, The eyes of the female members of the Loki family team were extremely complicated. It seemed to be admiration, envy, desire, admiration. The complex emotions were like a tangled thread intertwined in the mind, unable to be separated. Whether it was a hero or a nine-demon princess, they were all existences that people admired and looked up to. Outstanding strength, amazing appearance, and personality that people could not hate. Especially Livalaya. Because they belonged to the same family, the girls of the Loki family knew her personality and charm better. Therefore, there were many members who yearned for the royal elves. However, such an existence was now easily touched by a young man. This would never happen under normal circumstances. Elves would only allow people they recognized to touch them, let alone Livalaya, who had royal blood flowing in her. But after being touched, Livy did not resist. Therefore, the girls of Loki's family all understood what this meant. Logically, they should denounce or even stop the boy who disrespected the royal elves. Especially for elves and half-elves, the nobility of blood has long been engraved in their inherent cognition. But the boy in front of them was a hero that made them all excited. So for a moment, they didn't know who to envy, and a slightly weird atmosphere was formed in the field. Spare me, if Loki knew this, she would make trouble again. The leader of the dwarf tribe rubbed his eyebrows as if he had a headache, and looked at the scene in front of him with a wry smile. He knew the character of his old friend, and no opposite S*X had ever touched her skin. Although Livalaya hated the stubborn and conservative rules in the elf country. But some of them had become her instincts. Even if she recognized the opposite S*X, Livalaya would not choose to contact them. It was not disgust or rejection, but simply that there was no one who could enter her heart. So far, the only people Livalaya had contacted were Ace, Lefia, Alicia, these girls. The opposite S*X was only the black-haired boy in front of him. Haha, after all, Livalaya in this state is rare. Inexplicably, the leader of the dwarf tribe had such an intuition. Recovering from her thoughts, Livalaya smiled at Sioran generously and appropriately. You always do something unexpected, Sioran. Naturally, it comes naturally. Now it seems that he has won the hearts of the royal elves? But the smile of the royal elf at this moment was very similar to that of her own leader, which made her feel weird. For Sioran's deliberate response, Livalaya seemed helpless, but also inclined to dote on him. The splendor of the sunset was eclipsed by the smile of the royal elf, and it was difficult to compare. There was no blame, nor was there any hesitation like an ordinary girl. The stunning face was even more beautiful at this time, making everyone lose their minds. I guess Loki would want to come directly and die together with him. This is how he and Livalaya have always been getting along. After exchanging the information they had obtained in the underground maze today. The only opposite S*X that she is willing to contact is the future partner of the royal elves. Although he hadn't heard Livalaya say it herself, Finn could probably guess it. Finn knew very well about the bad character of his own main god. If you have to compare it, it's like an old couple. Afterwards, faced with Sioran's slightly rash behavior, Livalaya's face instead showed a peaceful smile, which touched people's hearts. Seemingly keeping a certain distance, they actually have a unique fit. Sioran chose to separate from the members of the Loki clan and return to the clan's residence. Hee. Hearing the answer from the royal elf, Kongran's mouth curled up unconsciously. Therefore, after seeing the previous scene, he was so surprised and helpless. It's better not to let Loki know about this matter. What happened recently is enough to give me a headache. Thinking of this, Finn chose to bury what he saw today, the good thing, in his heart without hesitation. Only her unusually bright emerald eyes at this moment revealed some of her emotions. Some kind of invisible tacit understanding seemed to have existed since the first meeting, and there was no need to say more. If Loki knew that the hero not only kidnapped Isai and Dione, It caused Fulvice besides Sioran to be slightly stunned. The family has enough government affairs to deal with on weekdays, and he doesn't have time to solve the trouble caused by Loki. You, really, young. She was not distracted by Livalia's current beauty. The two smiled at each other without much talk. Chapter 140, Breaking All Laws with One Force. Ran your back. As soon as he returned to the clan's residence, Sioran skillfully took over a soft body. The attractive curves that are completely opposite to the tender face, coupled with the unique fragrance of a girl that is always radiating. It is enough to attract people to linger and indulge in this lovely contrast. Well, we are back, Hestia. Today you unexpectedly didn't lie on the sofa to read a book. Facing the daily coquetry of the goddess girl, Sioran smiled at her softly. Then he was a little surprised that Hestia didn't lie in the living room as usual. On weekdays, due to Sioran's excessive pampering, Hestia has long become a salted fish without dreams, always lying lazily on the sofa. While eating her favorite fried potato balls, she read books borrowed from the bookstore. Like a cat, curled up in a comfortable position to kill time. If it weren't for the fact that even if most of the power of the gods was sealed, they still maintained the characteristics that transcended races. Then Hestia would have the same worries about her body shape as an ordinary girl. But as far as the facts are concerned, their bodies are the world itself, which is embodied by the world's rules. They will not age, nor be contaminated by the mortal world, and always remain clean. Naturally, they will not change due to the accumulation of heat, and will always maintain their original appearance. After all, you all went to explore Deadless Street today. I didn't expect you to come back now, I was worried. Ran, do you have any misunderstandings about your own Lord God? Hestia was a little dissatisfied when she noticed the teasing in Sioran's words. Hestia's baby-like pink cheeks were slightly tensed, and her moist thin lips were also pouted at this time. The eyes, as blue and clear as the sea, flashed with the tenderness of a girl, not at all like a god. The two black and beautiful ponytails were swaying in the wind with the blue bows tied on them, dancing gracefully. The plumpness on her chest also fluctuated with the mood of the goddess at the moment, rippling with ripples that made people's heart beat faster. No matter how much time has passed, Hestia always retains the purity and innocence of the virgin goddess as when they first met. Haha, I know. I'm sorry to have made you worry, my lord god. Sioran smiled at the girl who was as innocent as usual, and there was a warm feeling in his heart. Although Hestia already knew her strength and was not afraid of anything. Even the gods who transcended races could be killed, but she would still express her worries frankly like now. To be honest, this touched Sioran, and this was why he chose Hestia. In his previous life, he basically didn't understand what emotions were, but just lived numbly as usual. In the huge machine called society, he was just an insignificant and tiny gear. And because he grew up in an orphanage, Sioran always treated the rest of the people as a bystander. Even if he lived in the same world with others. But he always thought that he and others were two intersecting parallel lines. Therefore, except for a few, friends who could talk to him, Sioran basically had no extra contacts, and it was difficult for his heart to stir up waves. Coming to this world of fantasy and unknown, he felt alive for the first time. So when choosing a family, he put family first. For Sioran, who has awakened his origin and possesses miracles from the sky, the help of the family is dispensable, and he cares about more core things. Looking at Hestia, who is no different from the first time he met her, Sioran feels a stronger sense of belonging in his heart. This is the most important treasure of his journey. Oh, by the way, Hestia, update the ability values of Lily and the others after dinner. It should be about the same. Thinking of the gains from this artificial maze, Sioran showed an unpredictable smile to the goddess girl. Really, Ran? You didn't explain yourself clearly. Hestia complained about Sioran's deliberate teasing, and then began to enjoy today's dinner with everyone. Ran, what did you take the supporters to do? This shouldn't be just a simple investigation mission. After dinner, she updated Lily, Luca and the others one after another. At present, the expression on the face of the goddess girl was obviously surprised. She had just checked the ability values of her family members. Whether it was the lowest level fox girl Sanyano Haruheim or Fierwazi in the front row, the total proficiency they accumulated reached an astonishing 1,000. This is an extremely rare change. Hestia, who has been updating the divine text for the family library for 10 years, can be sure. In the past updates, it was impossible to accumulate such a level of experience points except for expeditions. But according to what her child said, this time it was just a joint investigation with Loki's family. Could it be that Daedalus has enemies comparable to the underground maze? Hestia found it difficult to understand. A lot of interesting things happened and I got unexpected gains. Sioran skillfully stroked Hestia's hair. He was not surprised by the goddess girl's surprise, and then carefully told her about this experience. After all, this trip to Daedalus Street did have some emergencies. Let's not talk about the remnants of the dark faction hidden in the artificial maze. The remaining shadow assassins, new monsters, black-robed wizards with abnormal magic. Any one of them in Orario is enough to cause a big disturbance and impact the stability and order of the maze city. Not to mention the weirdos suspected to be 4.8 according to Finn and the fallen fairy clones that made the other adventurers despair. No matter what kind of spider web the other party has woven, no matter how elaborate the strategy is. When Sioran parted with Loki's family, he learned from AISI that there was a laboratory similar to the fetal orb. Either way, it was a situation that would make the top factions of the Labyrinth City be on high alert. Even Sanyano Haruheim, who joined last, also gained a lot of experience points in this auxiliary operation. Either the transformation of the fairy spirit clone had been completed, or there were other breeding rooms. The leader behind them was most likely the so-called Labyrinth Destroyer, Inaya. The artificial labyrinth was like a shadow attached to the shadow of Orario, trying to drag this central city of adventurers into the abyss. Wait until Sioran has understood all the knowledge he needs. Conspiracies and tricks without sufficient strength are just a farce of Oda. Ran, are there any more of those filthy fairy clones? After all, his vision was not limited by a city, and the world could not do it. The girls of the Hestia family have already defeated an astonishing number of enemies in this exploration. Although he still needed to kill a few gods to verify, the focus now was on the analysis of the underground labyrinth. Even if the existence hidden in the deepest part was a god, Sioran would not care at all. If too many of those things appear on the surface. For most adventurers and residents of Orario, it is an unimaginable disaster. Once a large number of fallen fairy clones are cultivated on the surface, with the strength of reaching 4.7. Absolute power is the foundation, and it is not an exaggeration to say that one power can break all laws. The artificial labyrinth under Daedalus Street actually hides a lot of fallen fairy clones. Hestia didn't continue, and Sioran understood what she meant. The food warehouse in the middle layer provides nutrition to these orbs and serves as a transit station. Then he will truly become the strongest in these two worlds. This simple investigation has found most of the shadows that have been hidden in the past. In the end, they completed the great feat of defeating Leave 7 in coordination, which is enough to meet the conditions for upgrading. Based on the scale of the artificial labyrinth and the revelation of the white-haired ghost at the time. It's okay, Hestia, I will take care of them. They will be vulnerable in front of his power. Sioran knew Hestia's concerns, but he never took it to heart. The girls who are already at the critical point of their current levels naturally meet the conditions for sublimation. According to AIC's observation, the hall had obviously been abandoned for a long time. Silently accumulating strength in the dark, trying to transform all the fetal orbs into fallen fairy clones. After absorbing a certain amount of magic power, they are placed in the artificial labyrinth for further cultivation. It was constantly accumulating the strength to destroy Orario, waiting for the day of complete outbreak. The guys in the dark should have started transporting the green orbs to the surface a long time ago. This surprised him a little. Chapter 141 Coexistence. Well, since you said so. Hestia stopped worrying after hearing Sioran's answer. Her slightly tense face relaxed and returned to her usual innocence. She certainly knew her child's strength. Although she couldn't see the whole picture, Hestia could slightly perceive the tip of Sioran's iceberg with her intuition. Just refreshing the record of the highest level of adventurers since the gods came to the lower world was enough to make people look up to him. What's more, this child also possessed the 3 miracles that she couldn't understand. All along, the only thing that made Hestia a little helpless was that Sioran seemed to care nothing about the bystanders. The title given to him by the gods and the people of the lower world was only from a personal perspective. They placed some hope on their children. Hestia was very clear about this. As her first family member, he was definitely not an ordinary hero. Sioran would not respond to the expectations of others, he always acted according to his own interests. He had no idea about the expectations of the people in the Labyrinth City and the desires of others. But once he made up his mind, he would definitely take responsibility for the matter to the end. Since he said he would solve the artificial labyrinth, there was no need to worry. Most of Sioran's actions, except for his interests, were for them, and Hestia understood this. Although he was always indifferent to everything else on weekdays. But sometimes he would play the role of the city's guardian like now. Like the unpredictable wind, at first glance it seemed close at hand, but it seemed far away. Therefore, Hestia was extremely glad that the child chose her at the beginning, and was also happy that he was the first person to be invited. The years spent in Orario made Hestia feel sincerely satisfied. Compared to the countless years in the past, the accumulation of existence cannot be compared with the present. That's right, leave it to me, Hestia. You just focus on upgrading Philwace and the others. I know. The goddess girl responded with a long tone, and then took the girls back to the room again. When she first updated Lily Luca's ability value, Hestia was still a little unbelievable. So she didn't upgrade the followers immediately, but checked Philwace and the others' latest status one after another. After understanding the ability values of the followers, Hestia couldn't hold back her curiosity at all, and came out to ask Sioran what happened, and only now went to upgrade Lily Luca and the others. Because there are few members in Hestia's family, it doesn't take much time to upgrade the level. Soon, all the girls walked out of Hestia's room. There was no exaggerated change in appearance, just a little unstable breath fluctuation. Another similar point is, the girls, there was an amazing brilliance in their eyes, and an irrepressible smile appeared on their faces. Obviously, Philwace and the others have completed the upgrade, and all this is within Sioran's expectations. Although the level of the fallen fairy clone defeated on the 59th floor has reached the standard of transcending great achievements. However, that time was done by the Hestia family and the Loki family. This resulted in the girls not gaining much experience in that battle and failing to meet the upgrade standard. Now the dirty people encountered in the artificial maze, the filthy fairy spirit was defeated by just a few of them. Naturally, they accumulated enough proficiency and met the conditions for sublimation. In the current living room, even the highest level Philwace crossed the threshold of 4.6 as expected. Became the only 4.7 in the maze city. If this news was known to others, it would definitely cause a big storm. After all, except for Sioran, who was out of the standard, the highest level adventurer in Orario has always been Brave Oda. It is precisely because of his existence that the Freya clan could be called the strongest faction before. This is a fact that Loki cannot deny even if he is unhappy about it. However, the current situation has obviously been broken. The current combat power of the Hestia clan, even without the existence of Sioran, just relying on Fulvice and others, is enough to be included in the category of the strongest faction. As for not updating the level of his own girls who are kept in the guild, Sioran has no plans to go there for the time being. It depends on when to stop by the Pantheon, and then he can register. Anyway, this matter is not important to them. After all, the influence of the Hestia clan has reached its peak now. A few more first-level adventurers will not make much difference. But level sublimation is naturally a good thing, and Sioran is also happy to see the growth of the girls. Looking at Fulvice and others with happy expressions, Sioran's smile unconsciously softened a little. Seeing the girls he brought into the clan continue to evolve, he always has an inexplicable sense of satisfaction in his heart. He pursues the adventure of the unknown and enjoys the bond formed during the journey. By the way, Ran, the guild sent you a letter this afternoon. It's strange. When did you get in touch with Uranus? After a while, he seemed to remember something. He took out a black letter he received, and there were several golden lines on the edge of the envelope. The calm and majestic black and gold luster exudes a mysterious atmosphere. The envelope has a unique seal of the guild on the surface, and it was delivered to the residents in the evening. Before Sioran and his friends went to investigate Daedalus Street and came back. After completing her daily work, Aina especially came to deliver this secret letter. According to the half-elf girl, this is a top-secret document, and it is the first time she has been assigned to deliver this type of letter. Huh? Uranus and I don't have much communication. We just met once. Looking at the letter in the hands of the goddess girl that obviously contained some special meaning, Sioran was slightly surprised. He had only been to the prayer hall once with Loki in the past. That time was just to confirm whether Uranus was related to the turmoil behind the monster festival. At the same time, he also wanted to see what kind of power the god called Great God had. Apart from that, he never met Uranus again. Instead of communicating with this old god, Sioran preferred to chat with the beautiful girl. Now, the old god who had not seen him for a while would specially ask Aegina to deliver this so-called top-secret letter. The divine will in it made Sioran curious, and then he opened the letter handed over by Hestia. The first thing that caught his eye was a complex text full of mysterious atmosphere. It was actually written in sacred text. Seeing this, Sioran's interest in his heart became stronger. Uranus obviously did not want others to know the content of this letter. Deliberately choosing sacred text to write, he reflected the meticulousness and seriousness of the believers. In addition to the gods, there are very few people who can understand the sacred text. Even Aegina, who has excellent learning ability, cannot fully master the language of the gods. But this is nothing to Sioran, just an alternative foreign language. No time wasted. Sioran carefully read the contents of the letter, and the smile on the corner of his mouth gradually became playful. This letter was indeed written by Uranus himself. The information contained in it is extremely complex, but only two keywords attracted Sioran's attention. Heretics. Miri. Especially the two characters heresy. That was the golden-winged songbird he had encountered on the 19th floor while accepting a commission after he had finished teaching Ace. It had a perfect appearance that was no less than that of a goddess, but also retained some of the characteristics of a monster. The beauty of surprise and chaos intertwined. It was very similar to the existence of monsters, and could be seen as a new species between humans and monsters. It had its own rationality and suppressed the killing instinct given by the underground maze. Although there was only a brief exchange at the time. But Sioran could clearly sense the light of wisdom in the eyes of the songbird girl. It was not a new type of cold weapon created by the maze, but a new and independent intelligent species with the same rationality as humans and subhumans. According to Uranus' description, the guild named their race Xenos. The word Xenos means heresy among the gods. It was neither a species on the surface nor gradually separated from the influence of the underground maze. It could indeed be called a heresy. After the food storage incident, Sioran followed Loki to meet Uranus. Unlike Loki, who was skeptical and wanted to verify it with his own eyes, Sioran ruled out the possibility that Uranus was the man behind the destruction of Orario at the beginning. The old god who had bestowed his grace on this land thousands of years ago. There was no reason to destroy the city that he personally witnessed. In the previous meeting, Sioran also tested the old god. After seeing the pair of golden wings, Sioran had reason to suspect that the guild knew about the existence of those non-human and non-monster races. In terms of the degree of mastery of the underground labyrinth information, no force could know more clearly than the guild, which had been in existence for a year. So in the previous meeting, Sioran asked the old god from the side. At the beginning, Uranus answered him with anything is possible in the underground labyrinth. Therefore, Sioran had already concluded at that time that the guild had some kind of connection with the heretics. Now, this letter sent to him made him completely certain. All the information in my mind has been connected together. According to the letter, the guild knew about the existence of heretics in the early years. It was first discovered by the family that had been friendly with Uranus. After that, perhaps it was the kindness of the old god. Or there were other reasons. Uranus chose to conceal this matter and even secretly help the heretics. The skeleton man who had previously begged Sioran to go to the 24th food depot was Uranus's private soldier in the dark. He has always been the old god's spy in the maze city and the underground maze. He has been paying attention to all abnormalities that may cause the safety of the maze city for Uranus. Heretics are completely beyond the cognition of adventurers and even gods. It can be foreseen that once exposed, it will inevitably have an unimaginable impact on Orario. So Uranus cannot choose to turn a blind eye to them. Compared with destruction, the old god chose another way: coexistence. When seeing this, Sioran really admired Uranus's vision and generosity. This old god's sight seemed to never be above his own enjoyment. Always looking at the labyrinth city. No, to be precise, it should be the future of the races in the lower world, including both humans and subhumans, as well as the new species in the underground labyrinth. Uranus regards all races with reason and emotion as his subjects, even the heretics in the labyrinth. This vision and courage are worthy of his reputation as a great god. That is something that gods like Ishtar and Apollo, who purely pursue their own enjoyment and arbitrarily distort the will of their followers, do not have at all. The purpose of the letter sent by the old god to Sioran was to hope that he would go to the secret and heretic on the 19th floor to meet. Uranus saw possibilities far beyond all the past in the hero. The coexistence of species. After reading the contents of the letter, Sioran knew Uranus's purpose, but he didn't care too much about it. 00. He had decided to contact this new species early on. Before, he focused on the gods because the magic of grace played an important role in his life. Now it's time to turn to the underground maze. When they first met, he became interested in heretics. After learning about the existence of weirdos, Sioran became more interested. It was for this reason that he crushed the white-haired ghost to death. Compared with weirdos, he was more curious about heretics. Sioran was looking forward to something, and now he could use heretics to verify his ideas. Of course, he would not deliberately kill gods again. She rarely saw her child like this. As for whether contacting heretics would lead to rejection by the rest of the people in the labyrinth city, although this result was already doomed. This is the trust and tacit understanding that has been rooted in the soul for a long time. P.S. I am so tired. I have been staying up late these days and my wisdom teeth are inflamed. I am sorry, friends. But it is almost finished, but the toothache is really terrible. Shit. Ran, what exactly is written on it? Sioran didn't care about that at all. Could the deep malice towards monsters accumulated in people's hearts over thousands of years fight against his will? Although Hestia usually played the role of a mascot in the family. Thinking of this guess, the goddess girl felt a little flustered in her heart. The gods who were unattainable in the eyes of the people in the lower world were no different from ordinary people in his eyes. Ran, you don't want to? In the final analysis of the underground maze, Sioran focused on this new species. The other girls looked at their main gods and leaders who were playing dumb with a little confusion. Sioran saw through Hestia's thoughts at the moment and interrupted the goddess girl's subsequent words. His goal this time was very clear, that is, the underground maze, and he had no time to care about any gods. Occasionally, she would talk to Sioran about things that did not belong to their current level. Even if everyone opposed it, what could he do? He just had to enjoy enough fun and achieve his goal. However, they were also somewhat familiar with this and did not want to delve into it. Sioran was a little curious about this. She knew her child's courage best. Sioran's thoughts began to spread. It was enough for heretics to be useful to him. But her essence was still a noble and great god. The sublimation he wanted to complete later was a level above the gods, which could not be achieved by simply killing gods. His purpose was not as noble as Uranus's. He only followed the interests of himself and his own girl. I'm not interested in that now. This time it's something else interesting. This state was like, the look after completing the feat of killing gods before. Besides, with his current reputation, there were many adventurers who had fanatical faith in him. Therefore, the girls, led by Fearwise, consciously chose not to ask. No, Hestia. Tab. But if he met them during the maze journey, he would just kill them. Looking at Sioran, who was rarely lost in thought on the sofa, Hestia seemed very concerned. Chapter 142 What is this? Uranus's sudden letter slightly accelerated Sioran's original plan. The next morning, Sioran took the girls of his family to the underground maze to see the so-called secret place in the old god's letter. Although he did not tell the girls the full content of the letter. But he naturally would not hide his plan to explore the maze. So after knowing their leader's decision last night, Lily Luca and the others chose to go together. Master Sioran, how many floors do you plan to go this time? On the way. Philowazi couldn't help her curiosity and looked at Sioran beside her. Since reaching 4.8, their leader has never been very interested in the underground maze. However, after reading the mysterious letter sent by the guild, he chose to take the risk the next day. This made Philowazi, who has always been indifferent, also full of interest in this journey. Well, it's the 20th floor. Hey. Hearing this, the elf girl was rarely surprised. She had never expected this answer. Originally, they thought that their maze journey this time would be to the area below the deep layer. Even beyond the 59th floor that they had explored with Loki's family before. 70-80. After all, the overall strength of the family has changed again after passing through the artificial maze under Daedalus Street. According to the habit of their own leader in the past, it is likely to be the floor that the family explores. Unexpectedly, the destination this time would only be the middle layer, which completely broke the elf girl's expectations. Hee because there are very interesting things happening there, don't be too surprised later. Sioran knew about Feyrwazi's surprise. Not only her, but the other girls were in the same state. But in order to appreciate the girls' interesting expressions when they saw the heretic later, Sioran did not tell the truth for the time being. The race beyond the cognition of the people of the lower world and the gods is a rare unknown. Master Sioran has bad intentions again. On the side. Lily Luca sighed helplessly when she saw the familiar smile on Sioran's face. He always kept a gentle face towards them, but he often liked to play tricks on them. Whenever he saw their shy and surprised expressions, the boy always looked like he was enjoying it. It was really a bad taste. The little human girl silently complained about her own frivolous leader in her heart. Alas! Can't you restrain your inexplicable taste a little bit? Amid, who always kept indifferent, couldn't help feeling helpless. She was called the battlefield saint and could always maintain her inner peace in front of others. But the boy in front of her could always disturb her heart again and again. Her proud state of mind was vulnerable in front of him. When did it start? Amit couldn't help but think of the scene when he met Sioran in the guild library several years ago. Wow, Lord Sioran's smile, I often see it at night. Suddenly, a certain weak-spirited girl said something shocking, causing her heroic red-haired friend beside her to lose consciousness. Seeing the deliberate amusement on her leader's face, Cassandra's thoughts were inexplicably pulled into many blushing scenes in the past. +4. I haven't yet received the favor of Lord Sioran, so envious. Lord Sioran, please be careful about your words and deeds, you are now the hero of Orario. Beside him, Fulvice's sight suddenly became sharp, and her ruby-like eyes reflected the seriousness and earnestness unique to elves. But the delicate earlobe next to her cheek slightly flushed, revealing her hesitation at the moment. Although her words were full of determination, she seemed inexplicably weak and had no experience in attacking. Obviously, Cassandra's words reminded her of some similar scenes. Yes, yes. Faced with the common condemnation of her own girls, Sioran habitually spread his hands. Then the group entered the underground maze in this way. With the current strength of the Hestia family, they can completely ignore the monsters on the upper and middle levels. Soon, Sioran and the girls arrived at the big tree maze on the 19th floor. The topography here is the same as before. The moss covering the entire floor is emitting a hazy halo. In the vast space, this green is as small as a grain of sand. However, when gathered together, it forms a brilliance like the stars in the sky. It reflects the unique wonders of the big tree maze. Master Sioran, what is this? Fulvice's tone was rarely filled with surprise. An incomprehensible scene was appearing in front of her. Lily has never seen this before. Lily, Luca and the others were also puzzled and surprised, their eyes fixed on the green stone wall in front of them. Not long after entering the maze, Sioran followed the route given by Uranus. He was originally planning to continue moving forward, but was attracted by the sudden light in front of him. In front of everyone, a faint halo was emerging on the wall made of interwoven bark. It was very different from the way the underground maze usually breeds monsters. After the familiar stone wall cracked, the hideous figure of the monster did not appear directly. There were no scarlet pupils, nor was there a piercing murderous aura and coldness. Instead, a little haze similar to starlight suddenly appeared and was gradually gathering into a spherical shape similar to Ge Wukuo. The breath overflowing from the light ball in front of him was not the kind of chaotic malice. Rather, it was the opposite, revealing a kind of pure new innocence. It seems that something interesting has happened. Sioran looked at the pure white cocoon in front of him with interest. He and his girls could clearly hear the sound inside the light cocoon. 67-17-67. This is a calm and soothing beat, very similar to the heartbeat of a normal person. It was jumping in a certain rhythm, like the notes jumping on the stave, full of joy and excitement. Obviously, a new life is being nurtured inside the light cocoon. If it were on the surface, Fei Ertsong Si and the others would not be so surprised even if they were strange. After all, in this world where gods and people coexist, there are unknowns everywhere. However, the current scene that is no different from a newborn baby actually happened in the underground maze. In this space full of blood and chaos, there appeared a touch of newborn and pure white that was completely opposite to it. This scene seemed extremely strange. Even the girls who had experienced many things outside the rules were rarely shocked by this. However, Jiuran was not surprised. He just looked at the light cocoon in front of him with a little expectation. in addition to the beating sound similar to that of the heart. What is this? She is neither a human, a subhuman, nor a monster, but a new existence between the two. She retains some physical characteristics of a monster but does not exude that kind of coldness and chaos. Like a human but not a human. Before Fearwazy could react, the light cocoon in front of her suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Seeing the continuous changes in front of him, Ji Wuzhang subconsciously stood in front. However, after seeing her pitiful and beautiful face that is not inferior to that of a goddess, it is impossible to regard her as a monster. Fei Wei quietly walked in front of Xiaoran, staring at the halo in front of him with a serious look. He also felt the soul breath similar to that of the singing bird girl from the halo in front of him. After a while, his guess was verified. In appearance, she is highly similar to a monster dragon girl Wei in the underground maze, but there are very significant differences. What a cute child! Like starlight, it instantly spread all around, adding a touch of brilliance to the lush green. There are a few scales of some creatures left on her smooth body, which makes people know at a glance that she is a non-human existence. I have never seen such a thing. What is this? Xiaoran gently pulled the elf girl back to her side. Except for a weak fox who was obviously a bit naive. Therefore, the person who is at the front of the team and bears the pressure has always been Fearwazy, who has already engraved this in her bones. Although he knew the strength of his own leader. Right in front of the girls. Is this the birth process of the heretic? My luck value has always been a mystery. After the light cocoon disappeared, what appeared in front of them was as hideous and ugly as they imagined. Master Xiaoran, please be careful. Like a cascading waterfall, it seems to be scattered in a disorderly manner, but in fact it reflects a unique beauty. Xiaoran roughly guessed the existence that was about to appear. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be the same as Lei Yi. But the habit he had developed for a long time made the elf girl act instinctively. She has long, smooth blue hair, which is glittering with a little light due to the halo left over from before. A slender and petite figure slowly appeared in the air. Falling, as soft as a feather. The rest of the girls couldn't hold back their fear, and their faces were full of astonishment. It's okay, Fearwazy, this child is not an enemy. Her fair and tender skin has a hint of blue, which is very similar to the color of her hair. In just a few breaths, the haziness of the light cocoon gradually became solid, and even showed signs of solidity. In the Hestia family, Xiaoran always plays the role of an observer or guardian. At the same time, there is a shining red gem embedded in the forehead of the girl, which contains obvious magic fluctuations. On the contrary, it was full of a different kind of peace and pure white. Chapter 143, Could it be that the bargain was given to others? Faced with this unusual scene, Fearwazy and the others were temporarily unable to express their feelings in words. In the past, the girls of Hestia's family had seen many things beyond common sense with their leader. Or exaggerated strength, terrifying upgrade speed, freedom from anyone's influence, and contempt for the will of God. But the girl who appeared in front of them still made them fall into deep doubt. For thousands of years, this land has been full of bloody fights. In order to protect their homes, the human race and the subhuman race chose to fight with monsters without hesitation. In this war that lasted for thousands of years, no one had ever heard of a species similar to the one in front of them. This new life suddenly appeared in everyone's eyes. Well, there is still a lot of room for growth. Unlike his own girl, Xiaoran looked at the girl who was slowly falling in the air frivolously. Before the other party was about to fall to the ground, Xiaoran held her in his arms. It seemed that he felt something. The eyes of the newborn dragon girl trembled slightly, and then she opened her eyes. The first sight the girl saw was a black that permeated everything. Black hair, black pupils. Black that swallowed everything but seemed to be able to embrace everything. The newborn dragon girl was destined to be stained with this color the moment she came into the world. Can you speak? Looking at the girl in front of her who looked like an ignorant young animal. While asking, Sioran put his coat on her. His large coat just happened to completely wrap her petite body. As a new heretic, the underground maze would not give her clothes. The dragon girl tilted her head unconsciously, repeating the boy's words awkwardly. Although her ember eyes were full of confusion and pure white, her body instinctively tried to understand Sioran's meaning. It's really a blank sheet of paper. Looking at the dragon girl in his arms, Sioran suddenly had the illusion of taking care of a child. Please wait for 15 seconds, Chan Grantiangxia. You won't tell me that I came to the underground labyrinth today just for this. Halfway through her words, Philowazi found that she didn't know how to address the dragon girl in front of her. She regarded the other party as a subhuman like herself, but the obvious monster characteristics of the dragon girl made it difficult for her to ignore. However, if she directly called her a monster, Philowazi couldn't do it. The confusion and innocence reflected in the eyes of the dragon girl in front of her made her unable to ignore it. The light of reason flashing in it was extremely bright, completely unlike the coldness and violence of the monster. Encountering this existence that was completely beyond her common sense. Philowazi rarely didn't know how to express her emotions at the moment. She couldn't regard the dragon girl as those cruel and cold-blooded monsters, but it was also difficult to treat her as a subhuman. For a moment, Zhuangzi fell into the previous entanglement again. The cognition accumulated in the lower world for thousands of years has long been rooted in the souls of all races. Monsters are enemies, this is something that cannot be changed. But what about heretics with reason? What should they be considered? Not only Fearwise, but also Sanyano Haruheim, who is still out of the situation. The other girls all stared at the dragon girl in front of them in amazement, with all kinds of complicated emotions intertwined in their eyes. They wanted to make up their minds to solve this monster many times, but in the end they couldn't really take action. That flawless face showed the same emotions as theirs, pure and innocent. It's hard to imagine that such an expression would appear on a species bred in the underground labyrinth. The weapon that has accompanied the girl's growth for a long time. Now it seems extremely heavy, and it is impossible to lift it as easily as before. Even if they want to identify the dragon girl as a monster, the answer has actually come to their mind, and they are just waiting for an answer. If there is no boy who constantly breaks the cognition of all the lower races and heavenly gods around them, they should be more shaken now. But even so, the girls of the family still find it difficult to accept the new heresy in front of them. Except for Sanyano Haruheim, who has obvious goodwill, the eyes of the other girls are all with a touch of scrutiny and vigilance. Hearing the elf girl's address to the boy, the dragon girl was a little confused. It seemed to be asking, but it seemed to be confirming. Yes, this is my name. Sioran gently stroked the dragon girl's hair and said to her softly. Sioran, name. My name. The girl's learning ability was growing at a visible speed. But it was more like remastering than learning. In a short time, she quickly understood the meaning of Sioran's words and asked about her name. Seeing the dragon girl, who was still a little confused but now had more expectations, Sioran was silent for a while and told her name. Your name is Winnie. That was the name in the story of heterosexual marriage that Sioran had read in the guild library. He was very interested in the fantasy stories circulating on this land when he first came to the Maze City. Although the content of the stories was mostly traditional and monotonous, it was worth reading. Not everyone yearns for heroes, but it is undeniable that the achievements of heroes are worth praising and spreading. The story of heterosexual marriage was one of the fairy tales Sioran had read at that time. In the book, the fairy with wings of light fell in love with the hero who saved her. Some of her features were inexplicably similar to those of the heretic girl with dragon wings in her arms. Therefore, Sioran shortened the name of the fairy and used it as the name of the dragon girl, which seemed closer and more appropriate. The fairy's original name was too gorgeous and not suitable for the innocent and pure dragon girl in front of her. Wei Ni. My name is Wei Ni. Hearing the boy's answer, the dragon girl kept repeating the name she had just obtained as if it were a treasure. A pure and flawless smile bloomed on her fair and tender cheeks, and its infectiousness made Feyerwazy, who was entangled on the side, lose her mind. Too bright. It dyed the slightly dim maze with a dazzling pure white. Feyerwazy and the others watched everything happening in front of them in silence. Except for a certain fox, when they were all in a certain silence. The boy she loved had already named this abnormal girl. Reason told them that they should stop their leader from being so willful at this time. But when they saw Winnie's smile, all the words were stuck in their throats. Although the newborn dragon girl's cheeks were full of tenderness, the current overflowing emotions made them unable to ignore. That was the innocence similar to that of a baby, enough to penetrate people's hearts. The handsome black-haired boy and the pure white dragon girl formed an extremely beautiful picture, and no one was willing to break this scene. Although I have guessed it, I still want to seriously ask about your decision. Does Lord Sioran intend to bring this child back to the ground? I don't know how long it has been, and Feyerwazy, who has come back to her senses, looks at Winnie with a complicated expression. She is very clear about the willfulness of the person she loves. When she heard him name the dragon girl in front of her, the elf girl actually knew the answer to this question. But she still couldn't help asking this question. Oh, right, such a cute dragon girl should be picked up and raised at home. Are you going to give it to others at a low price? Without any hesitation, Sioran's decisive words broke the remaining fluke in Feyerwazy's heart. You should know what impact will be caused after making such a decision, right? It was not an accusation, nor was it oppression, but just the unique mood of a girl. Feyerwazy's red eyes reflected unprecedented seriousness and solemnity. Rather than worrying about the problems that the Hestia family will face, she wanted to know the real reason why her leader made this choice. As a fairy who always accompanies him, Feyerwazy understands that Sioran has always admired and possessed outstanding girls with personality. It is not a strong plunder. But relying on that unstoppable his charm makes any opposite s*x who meets him fall for him. After all, he is one of them. Although the pure white and serious elf girl may feel a little jealous occasionally, she has actually accepted it. Apart from him, no other opposite s*x in the world will be qualified to approach her. This is a fact that has been determined early on. But Feyerwazy also understands one thing. Although his leader does not hide his admiration for other girls. However, there are not many who can really enter his heart. He is definitely not someone who makes such a choice just because of appearance. With this idea in mind, Feyerwazy spoke again. Then what is the real reason that makes you make this choice? Lord Sioran. The reason that makes you not care even if you are misunderstood as a monster lover by others. Monster lover. Adventurers themselves are different from ordinary people, and they often wander between life and death. In some ways, they are even more twisted than the gods who have been empty for countless years. Some of those who have awakened their perverted hobbies will have sexual desire for monsters with human form, such as half-human, half-snake, lamia. In the lower world, there is the worst derogatory name monster lover. It's really rare, Feyerwazy. Feyerwazy knows this clearly, so it is a little difficult to understand why he made this decision. After all, in the past, their leader has always been there to protect them. In the past, he had some concerns because of the girls, so he restrained himself. Sioran is not interested in these things anymore. But that was because he was not truly invincible at that time. The elf girl is not afraid of the riots that will happen, she just wants a reason. As long as it is 550's own decision, they will unconditionally believe it. Whether alive or dead, she will always follow the black-haired boy in front of her. Just as the elf girl said. Now, after killing the gods, he has already reached the pinnacle of this world. Risking the possibility of becoming enemies with the lower world races in the labyrinth city and even the whole world. Naturally, he will not be as cautious as before. Sioran knows this very well. When he realizes what he wants in his heart, the world will be just a toy in his hands. Hearing the answer given by Sioran, looking at Fierwazi and the other girls with serious masks, she smiled helplessly. Sure enough, changing the inherent existence will always be rejected by everyone. This also proves how much the lower world races hate monsters. Bringing such a strange dragon girl to the ground. Although he was not afraid of being an enemy of the world, he would consider his own girls. What they need now is an answer that makes them completely determined. There must be a higher level of reason, the elf girl can be sure. Hey! You are still so willful, and you have never changed. Such a man would now make this decision that will obviously bring a huge impact to the Hestia family. P.S. The wisdom tooth pain for a few days has finally subsided. I will resume updating, friends. I was really in a bad state in the past few days. It was difficult to open my mouth to eat, and I was in a bad mood. A reason that can make her forget the malice and prejudice that has lasted for thousands of years. There is a stunning meal on the pure and perfect face, and there is a determination in the ruby-like eyes that even time cannot erase. Even the girls who have witnessed themselves for a long time are puzzled. She had made the decision when they first met, and her body and mind had long been engraved with the only mark that belonged to him. If it weren't for them, he would never care about the stability and order of Orario. Fierwazi sighed as if relieved, and then a moving smile appeared on her face. But since it is your decision, I will stand with you no matter what I face. Noticing that the family was full of the girl Zilly's eyes, Sioran gave his own answer. Of course, it's because I want to do it. It's very important to me, that's all. Without a doubt, this is the most direct response from Sioran's heart. He originally planned to do an experiment on the heretic. He confirmed his idea in his heart when he met Lei a long time ago. After learning about Rebus from Ace later, he wanted to speed up his plan. Now seeing the scene of the underground maze giving birth to the dragon girl and the encounter with Winnie, Sioran is more certain of his own thoughts. Everything is both accidental and his destiny. Sioran already has some guesses about the heaven where the gods coexist. After all, he has all the memories of Ishtar and Apollo, and can know part of their true nature. Now the only thing that cannot be seen through is the current underground maze, which is a brand new world. The opportunity to analyze it is in front of him, how could he let it go? Once his guess is verified, he will be equal to the world. As for the hostility of the labyrinth city, or the so-called collapse of reputation, as long as they are normal humans and demi-humans, they will never accept people with monster lover. Chapter 144, quite suitable to be a mother. Ran, where to go? A slightly timid voice sounded in the big tree maze covered by greenery. The clear voice of the dragon girl was as pleasant as a flowing spring, containing the innocence and purity of a newborn. On the way to Miri mentioned in Uranus's letter. Winnie, wearing a long robe, tightly grasped the arm of the boy beside her. Just like a fledgling will regard the existence it sees at first sight as its parents. The dragon girl spoke an unskilled language and snuggled up to Sioran. Although she could not communicate as freely as the races on the surface, she could already understand some basic words. This was an extremely exaggerated progress. You have to know that it has only been 10 minutes since Winnie was born. In such a short time, the dragon girl is about to master the language she has never touched. It can be seen that her learning speed is far beyond imagination, and she is absorbing the common language on the ground very quickly. During the journey, Winnie gradually understood the simple meaning of Sioran's words. After learning of Sioran's decision, the girls of the clan said nothing more. No matter what choice their leader made, they would obey. Moreover, this was one of the rare times that Sioran acted for himself, which made Firwazi and the others more determined. They had always been protected by Sioran, and they always wanted to do something for their hero. They were greedy for his tenderness and love, but they also hoped to show their own strength. Now was obviously a good time. Therefore, everyone did not hesitate too much and went directly to the location of the heretic. Your companion is where we are going, Winnie. Seeing the innocence on the face of the dragon girl, Sioran caressed her tenderness lovingly. If nothing unexpected happens, there may be quite a few heretics in Miri. According to the news told by Uranus, they discovered the existence of heretics more than 10 years ago. The earliest time of their appearance is still unknown. So even if the members of this new race are extremely rare, there must be a certain number of them after such a long time of settling down. And they are the main targets of the real life. Asterisk. Winnie in his arms didn't care much about Sioran's answer. She had just been born from the underground maze, and she couldn't deeply understand the concept of companion. The newborn dragon girl only knew one thing, that is, she didn't want to leave the boy. This piece of pure white drawing paper was dyed with Sioran's color the moment it emerged. Therefore, Winnie didn't care where she would go, she just wanted to stay in this warm place that made her feel comfortable. What a cute child dash. On the side. Sanyano Harui looked at Winnie's innocent smile, and her jade-like eyes reflected undisguised love. The fluffy golden fox tail behind her couldn't help but start swaying, like a breeze blowing over the golden wheat waves, dancing with waves. Facing Winnie, who was like a newborn baby, the motherhood of the fox girl seemed to be aroused. The innocent and pretty face was full of intoxicating tenderness, and the pity and love in her eyes were enough to soften all the sharp weapons in the world. At this moment, the fox girl gradually showed a kindness that did not belong to her age. Her charming curves were even more beautiful with this temperament, enough to arouse the hearts of any opposite s*x. From the first meeting, Sanjo Nohara showed a completely different attitude from the other girls. She was not at all wary and cautious of Winnie, and completely treated her as a cute child. Haruheim seems to be surprisingly suitable to be a mother. Notice the fox girl's unconcealed gaze. Sioran took a subtle look at the plump beauty of Sanyano Haruim's chest. With the girl's even pace, the charm that makes people's heart beat faster is like a foxtail. Well, it seems that I don't have to worry about my daughter's nutrition in the future. As for why it's my daughter? Don't ask, if you ask, there is a trick. La la la. Just as Sioran's thoughts continued to spread, moving notes suddenly came from the cave in front. Although it was just a simple hum, this song contained the magic of soothing people's hearts. The scattered notes were like nectar falling from the sky, and continued to echo around the cave according to a special rhythm. It seemed like a guide, and also like a welcome. Master Sioran, the owner of the song should be the one you are going to meet this time. Feeling the obvious kindness in the song, Lily Luca guessed the purpose of this trip. As the longtime commander of the clan, the little human girl always keeps a clear mind. Although her fighting ability is not outstanding, she is very good at controlling the overall situation. Knowing her own shortcomings, Lily Luca often strictly demands herself in this regard. You must stay sober and rational, so that you can do your best to help your partners and the heroes you love. Therefore, Lily Luca quickly analyzed Sioran's purpose from the intelligence she had learned before. Through the previous behavior of her own leader. And the trajectory that is obviously moving towards the song at this moment. Lily Luca understood the person they were about to meet. It is likely that it is another heretic similar to the dragon girl next to him. That's right, Lily is still so smart. Fortunately, you are not influenced by our stupid Lord God, which is really gratifying. Hestia, you are a child without fear. Sioran directly confirmed Lily Luca's guess. At this point, there was no need to keep it secret.